Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a science fiction horror film, Cabinet of Curiosities, The Autopsy. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with 9 men working deep underground in a mine. They ride the elevator going down the shaft. However, one of their fellow miners jumps down the shaft and lands on top of the elevator. The miner has a deranged look on his face. They ask him what he's doing all the way up there, but he just gives them a wicked smile. The elevator comes to a stop at the lower level. The miner immediately disembarks and throws a strange round object at the floor. Seconds later, the whole mine explodes. The explosion claims the lives of the 9 miners, along with the attacker miner. To honor them, the town erects a memorial displaying their mining hacks. The townspeople leave flowers and other gifts at this memorial. Sometime later, a man named Carl arrives in town holding 2 briefcases and wearing a trench coat. He enters a building and is greeted by the sheriff. The two have been longtime friends, and they catch each other up on what's going on with their lives. But the real reason for the visit is that Carl is a coroner, and the sheriff needs his help to decipher the mystery of why one miner suddenly went on a murderous rampage and killed his friends and co-workers. The sheriff begins his story back to 2 months ago, when a mill worker in town vanished. 1 week later, a woman also disappears. In the course of just a month, there are already 6 people missing. The sheriff and his men organized a search, and they found a decomposing body in the woods. But what's strange is that the man's body was dried up, and there was no drop of blood at all. The injuries he sustained were inflicted by someone with a very precise hand, and sections of his skin were carefully cut off. The sheriff ordered that the body be returned back to the tree where it was found. He then designated 2 hunters to guard the spot and watch out if the killer returned. The sheriff went away for a few hours to take care of things back in town, but when he returned, the hunters had disappeared, along with the body. Despite this baffling development, they managed to identify the corpse as a missing worker from a neighboring town. A bartender in the local tavern provided important information about the missing worker's last night alive. The worker was drinking at the tavern when he saw the same miner sitting at the bar, but the worker knew him as his friend, not as the name he was going by as a miner. At first, the miner told him he must be mistaken, but the worker insisted that he was his friend and they were supposed to go fishing together, but he never showed up. Suddenly, the miner leaned in close to the worker and stared deeply into his eyes, as if hypnotizing him. With this information, the sheriff further learned that the miner really was the friend that the worker mentioned. He had originally also been working in the neighboring town, but he also disappeared after going on a hike in the mountains to see a meteor shower. After that, he resurfaced in the sheriff's town with a new name and started working in the mines. They visited the miner's lodgings and found a strange circular object in his apartment. The landlady reported that the miner had found the object in the woods after watching the meteor shower. Based on the information, the sheriff and his deputy then decided to apprehend the miner at the mine. After the search, they took the circular object with them and left it in the backseat of the police car. While talking to the administrative staff of the mine, the miner suddenly appeared. He broke the glass window of the car and grabbed the circular object. He then ran back into the mine and jumped down the shaft. The sheriff and his men watched as the miner triggered the explosion, unable to stop him. That's how the whole story developed. In the present day, the sheriff concludes his story. He and Carl leave his office and travel to the morgue on the other side of town. On the way, Carl reveals that he has terminal stomach cancer and will die in a few months. The sheriff expresses his sympathies and is heartbroken that his friend is dying. The sheriff drops Carl off at the morgue and promises to return for him at sunrise. He begins his work by adjusting the corpses of the dead miners and setting out all his tools. He also starts a tape recording of the autopsy for the sheriff. He finds signs that the explosion did not cause the death of the miners, but instead it was asphyxiation. He surmises that maybe the missing miner didn't intend to trigger the explosion as a means to escape, but to destroy the circular object he obtained from the meteor shower. Suddenly, Carl sees his reflection on the glass door. His reflection is screaming at him to run, but of course, he ignores it and continues the autopsy. Carl finds a small hole at the bottom of one of the body's sternum. He cuts the man's body open and discovers that he had been completely drained of blood. He moves to another body and sees another hole, indicating where the blood has leaked through. He cuts open this body too and sees that the blood had also dried up. This makes 3 bodies already whose blood is gone. Carl decides to examine the miner's body next, but when he approaches the body, the miner comes back to life. His body is gray and decaying, but he moves with power and intimidation. Right then, the revived miner reveals that he is an alien parasite who feeds on the flesh of humans and inhabits their bodies. He came to Earth inside the circular object that came with the meteor shower. It turns out, when the miner took the object home with him, the parasite slithered out while he was sleeping and hijacked his body. He also caused the disappearances of the other missing townspeople. The alien-possessed miner also adds that he triggered the explosion because their species' first priority is to destroy any evidence of their kind when they are discovered by humans. After he caused the explosion, he feasted on the bodies of the other miners for days, which would explain why Carl had discovered that the other miners had no blood and had died of asphyxiation. Now, the alien's next victim is Carl. Long tentacle-like limbs sprout from the possessed miner's face, and he attacks Carl suddenly. When Carl regains consciousness, he is lying naked on the morgue table. The possessed miner explains that Carl will become his next host soon, because Carl is a coroner with easy access to fresh bodies. He starts to do an autopsy of his own body in order to extricate the alien parasite inside and transfer it into Carl's body. The alien reveals that for eons, his kind has been occupying humans' bodies. They have no senses of their own and must always occupy other bodies in order to explore and experience the world. Carl taunts the alien and says that everything his kind had ever had was a result of stealing. The alien responds by saying that when the sheriff returns at sunrise, he will become his first meal in Carl's body. The alien also adds that he particularly relishes tasting the pain and despair of his victims as he slowly feasts on them and their smelly parts, which was why he kept the 3 other miners alive for days after the collapse, and why he keeps the original miner's conscience still alive within the body. The possessed miner finishes cutting open his body, and he places the parasite on Carl's immobile body. The alien uses its long limbs to slither up Carl's body. With the parasite out of the miner's body, the real miner has a few moments of consciousness as he is dying. He chooses to help Carl by holding up a scalpel that he can use. Carl grabs the scalpel and tries to attack the parasite with it, but his hands are bound and he could not reach the parasite. Carl then realizes that there is no way for him to survive, but he can still take the parasite out with him. As the creepy parasite climbs inside his body through an incision below his sternum, Carl cuts his throat, then his eyes, and lastly his ears. In that way, he can trap the parasite inside. Since the parasite has no sense of its own, it will be helpless inside Carl's dying body. Carl communicates with the parasite through his nervous system. He announces that his body is dying soon, and the parasite would not be able to control his own body. He also adds that the parasite had forgotten that he was recording everything on his tape recorder. So when the sheriff arrives, he will know everything. The parasite tries to control Carl's body in fear and despair, but to no avail. With his dying breath, Carl writes a message for the sheriff on his chest with his own blood, hoping that the sheriff will know about the truth and helps prevent the evil alien parasite from spreading on Earth. As dawn comes up, the sheriff returns to the morgue to check the latest progress of Carl's autopsy. However, he searches only to discover Carl's naked body, with the strange words urging him to play the tape and burn Carl's body. The movie ends with the confusing sheriff replaying the tape recording, not sure of his next move. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.